Hello everybody. I am going to give a soldering demonstration on how to solder your small piece. It's going to be a little different than when you solder your large one, so I'll have to do a separate one on that one. But just for this purpose, we're going to kind of go over kind of the basics. So I have my other board out. If you haven't noticed, there's this foam core piece underneath here. And what that is for is if you have a little bit more of a complex shape, you pin the sides together. So I have these containers. This one says pins on it. And this one isn't complex enough where I would need to do this, but I'm going to kind of do it just to kind of show you what it's like. So you have the foam core piece here, which is kind of like a thicker, like a styrofoam between like two pieces of like a cardstock, and it allows you to stick these T-pins in. They're T-pins because it's shaped like a T. So then this doesn't shift on you, so you get it exactly where you want it. It's a little tricky getting inside here sometimes because you have all these tight pins, but if you have a larger piece, it's a lot easier to deal with. On the side, I also have my soldering iron. It's sitting inside this thing right here that we have stuck on the side. So this has been warming up for a little bit and it should be ready to go. You do want to get real comfortable when you do this. So I'm right-handed. I have my soldering iron on the right-hand side, so I don't have this cord, dragging across here and me dealing with that. So make sure you are in a very comfortable position when you do this. We do need to flux this. So what that is I have a flux and brush. I'm gonna grab one of these brushes out, grab one of these flux containers, set that off to the side. And flux is a chemical that you use when you solder or sometimes even when you weld. And what I want to do with it is wherever I'm going to be meeting the piece is I'm going to put solder on that. So I just flux that area and it cleans the metal for me. I'm going to set that off to the side. This one's pretty simple. I only got two pieces. I'm going to take my soldering iron. I also have another container. It says solder for sponges, or sponge for soldering. And I've already got this wet. I squeezed it out a few times. I left about 20% of the water in there. And I want to slide my iron back and forth on here. And it should be nice and silver and smooth. If it starts to turn gold, and I don't know if you can see this, I'm gonna bring this up real close. This means it's actually too hot because I've had this set in here for the demonstration. So I'm actually gonna reach over, shut it off, which you would just unplug it, and you can really kind of see it because you can see how, let's see if I can get the camera to focus in on that. This should not look like that because it gets a little too hot, so you want to unplug that, and it'll be fine for a while, and you can still solder with it, but the moment you notice it turning gold-like, just unplug it, and then you can kind of work it. Next, I'm going to grab another container. This has all of our solder in here. Any small pieces of solder, stick back inside here, and then we'll use them up still. Otherwise, you can grab a new one. You open this up, take your soldering iron and your sponge. Just going to clean it one more time. And you're going to, because it's so hot, it melted really fast. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to very gently slide across the surface and just tack that on there. Once that's on there, you can remove your pins. And your piece is solid. I will flip this over, grab some more flux, flux that right there, get some more solder on here. Now I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. The thing I look for right in here is hopefully you can see it. There's actually a little bit of a dip. And you want your solder line as flat as possible. So you do not want to dip, but you also don't want to have a hump on there either. So I'm going to add a little more solder. And you should have a nice, clean, straight line on that. Okay, so that's like perfect right there. I flip this over. This one could use a little bit more. The trick with soldering is you go slow with it. If you rush it, it doesn't give a chance for this to remelt. I'm gonna set my soldering iron down. The next part is you want to tin this outside edge and anywhere where you have the copper. So the first part on tinning is you take your flux and you apply your flux on the side. You apply your flux even on here because you're cleaning all that oxidation off of it, which is just when copper is exposed to air for a little while, it starts getting this black stuff on there. So it's all the way around, and then I flux the back. So this is all ready to go. Grab my soldering iron again. I always clean it off. Get a little bit of solder on here. Now, this is not melting as fast as I want it to anymore, so I'm going to turn it back on. And it should heat up pretty quick. So what you do when you're kind of waiting is you just lightly rest this on here. You don't keep pressing hard. That's not going to work. You gotta wait till this actually heats up. Okay, now it's flowing. So this is good. It's not gold yet. I don't need to unplug it, so I can keep getting hotter. When you tin, you wanna set it off to the side and tin along the edge like this. You never wanna hold it like that and tin like this, because you'll catch the solder right in your hand and it will hurt. So I'm just gonna go kind of slowly around the outside edge. There's a lot of solder on here. It's not like you have to keep applying it. Now I have a little bit of a gap right here. So I'm gonna grab my solder. Get some more on there and I can fill that gap in. See, just filled it in. Definitely use some more on the other side. So anywhere where I see the copper color, I want to go back over and get that. Now the solder is going to be a little warm, so I want to let that cool down just for a minute here. Okay, so looking at this, I was able to get all of the copper color off of it. A little bit right there, but that's not that bad that I missed. Now I did want to talk about, remember in the previous video I said that, you want to, cut that off, or you want to make sure you don't have this as an issue. And that's kind of why. It's like we have a copper piece here, and then I overlapped it on this side. So over here it's out a little bit. But it is kind of distracting. So that's why you want to line up your copper foiling the best you can so you don't get that look. Now this is the front because it has all the texture. But this is all set for the next part, which is adding the jump ring. Now for the jump ring, we do have two different kinds of jump rings. For your actual project, we usually use a thicker one. Right here it says links for stained glass. For these, you do have the option of using these smaller ones. And I can kind of dump these out. And you can see that there are different sizes of them. And what these are for is for something that you would hang a little bit smaller. Because you're going to solder that on, and then you put on a chain. Now we have chains that are in this container. It says chains. And they're just basically old necklaces that have been donated, and then you can cut off a section of one. So I'm just going to grab this one here that we could use. Our chains for our large stained glass project are these, because these are much more heavy duty. So this will be going on your actual project. But these small ones, you don't want something that big. So I'm gonna grab a jump ring. I'm gonna grab this one because that just looks nice. And I want to have a piece of glass that I can add on or set off to the side. You use this so it keeps it at the same level as your project. Now this is my front, so I'm gonna flip this over, and I want it to kind of hang like this, kind of at an angle. So I pinch and I hold it so I have an idea of where I want to put this jump ring at. Now the jump ring does have a split in it, and what that split is for is like you can open it with your hands, is you want to pass your, whatever chain you're going to use, you want to pass through it right away. Because also is a good time to make sure that this isn't too thick for whatever chain you want to use. Okay, and I'm going to close this up. So the chain is attached to the jump ring like that. So next, I'm going to set this down, and I like to solder the split on so then the chain doesn't come off easily. If you don't want to do that, so you can change it if you ever need to. You can set up side because here's the split and it's not split over here, and I can just add that on. So the way you add it on is you add your flux. Make sure it's in an area that has, every area should have solder on it. Again, I want this at an angle. Oops, I have it on the wrong side. Because I want the texture side in the front, so you always solder everything on the back. Okay, so I got my solder on there. I have this. I'm gonna get this hot. I clean it off one time with the sponge. Kind of sizzles when it does that. Lets you know it's getting hotter. And I want to get some solder on the tip of my soldering iron. Okay, there we go. And now the trick with putting jump rings on is you got to get the jump ring hot. So I'm going to set this down. Now because you have solder underneath it, you just putting this iron on top of that jump ring heats it up, and then solder kind of goes towards heat, so it'll pull it up right on top of it for you sometimes. Okay, so I'm gonna lift this up so you can see it a little better. I don't have a lot of room to slid over more than I wanted to, and I could heat that back up again, so this is a little more, it sticks out a little bit farther. But I'm looking at this, I can see solder going over top of the ring there and on this side. So this is good, and it hangs like this, and that's kind of what I wanted. What you do next is that we have photo areas in the art room. There's a big one in the 3D lab where you guys are at, and there's a smaller one in the other room. There's actually a hook that you can kind of hook this around and be able to hang it so you can take a photo of it. Now right now this is at this length. I usually recommend you grabbing another jump ring, opening that up, and then you can pass it through there, and you can slide it down anywhere you want, so it's adjustable. Close that back up, and you create this opening like this. And you can always just put a nail just through that, so it's as long as you want, but now you have some place that you can actually hang this up. You take a photo of this, put it in our Sonia, and you can take it home with you right away, okay? This still has some flux on it. I would take this over, add a little hand soap to it, gently wash it, and it's good to go. So that's how you do your soldering and how you put your jump ring on. Kent, let me know if you have any questions, and good luck on your project.